It's Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, right on time. And it's, we really should change that intro because it's not relaxing painting. There isn't that much painting that goes on this stream. Sometimes it does. Like, when I painted me, this is a maxi version of my minifig of Old Seth Ralph from our Dice and Dungeons show. That was painting. I did painting on this, and I've done a little bit of painting on this particular model, but most of it's been sanding and filing and masking. So we should just call it like relaxing with Dice and Dungeons. Maybe we should just make it sort of generic like that. Well, the thing I'm working on now is I'll just show it to you, not to mess things up, is the Enterprise Command Bridge model. This was a 25th anniversary model put out like in 91 or something, which now I guess that's a long time ago now, isn't it? Holy cow. Like 35 years. Oh, geez. Okay. Like I remember 1991 not being that long ago, but it's over 30 some years ago. But this is when this model came out, so it's old, I guess, vintage, and I'm getting close to being finished with it. Actually, I'm putting the decals on the control panels that go around the circle, and I've got 3 of them finished already. And I'm going to put them in this box. I forgot that I always box parts up, things that are done, things that are in process. If the model is completed, it's in a box. I've got a lot of these little boxes. I'm not advertising what's in the boxes, but I am using the boxes. So this is an example of how one of the control panels came out. And I think it came out okay. I really put some effort into it. This was a multi-step process. The top was painted kind of a white, nice white color, not bright white like the edges of the panels here, but slightly off-white. And then this was painted gray, and then these lines, these raised ridges around the panels, all had to be hand painted with white paint. And if you were watching it, you saw it was an iterative process of getting the white on, and then the white got onto the gray, and then the gray got onto the white, and back and forth until it looks okay. Okay. And then that had to get masked over. Actually, all of this did. And then the bottoms were painted this off-white color, which is used on several other panels. Like the elevator sides and the main viewing screen and stuff. And then that got unmasked, and this red stripe got painted on, and then this got masked on top and the bottom, and this metallic color that I'm using for the control panel areas all got painted, and now the decals are going on. As you can see, there's lots of decals. So this one's finished. Okay. This one is the communications panel. I don't know what this is about, but they're apparently communicating with that. It looks like the logo of a soft drink, doesn't it? I don't think that was intentional, but there it is. Yep. So that one's done. I can put that in the box. This is the weapons control panel, and why this is. I've been speculating about that since this decal got put on, about why are they targeting a purple blob, but that's what this is. And there's 2 more left. They're nameless. They're not told what they are, but they're there. And this one under here, it has been started. I got the 2 big things on, the 2 main things on. And now I'm going to be putting the 8 little ones and the control panel in the center of the display thing here. And then there's one more left that needs to be done. And once that's finished, then they will all be decaled. And I can try to start test fitting them in this array around the circle, which is completed. I did start to test with them a little bit, and it's going to be interesting because there isn't a really good contact between the bottoms of these panels and the outside of the circle. So I'm going to have to figure out how I want to do that. I'm thinking probably contact cement. Again, it's painted surface against painted surface. So I can't use the model cement, which is just fine. And what I want them to do is stick, but still be adjustable. Okay. And epoxy kind of does that, but it doesn't hold very well. Okay. It doesn't grip when you first touch things together. It just stays so there's adjustability, that's fine, but they need to be held for a long time before, like 5 minutes minimum, before they really adhere. The contact cement adheres right away, which means that they won't be flopping all over the place and moving, but it still stays pliable for a little while. A little while yet. Before it actually takes about 2 days before it really cures completely. So that's going to be a thing. The final steps are to attach these railings, and I could do that now. There's a railing that goes here too that isn't shown on the picture. I could do that now, but they're not that well attached. I mean, the contact points are fairly small, and there's just going to be a lot of movement and grumping as I try to get these attached. Maybe I'll be starting on that Friday. I'm not sure. Well, maybe even today. I'll see how this goes. Getting these decals on takes longer than one would expect. So I developed a little bit of a technique that involves soaking wet paper towels. These little decals sit on the wet paper towel rather than floating in a little puddle of water. And then I could get actually I last time I got 4 of them going all at once. Not sure. I'm just going to do 2 at a time. I'm not going to push my luck on this day. This day started out, like I've been mentioning, we've got a lot of construction going on, and that's been kind of disruptive. And folks were supposed to show up today at about 9, and they showed up at 8, which was a little bit of a surprise. And then they got called away on an emergency call at another one of their jobs. So after getting here early, they ended up leaving. Dip that in water. Now I've got a puddle. Yeah, it's on camera today. It's pretty good. It is usual. I need to take these off. Like most old people, I can see close up, but not far away. Most old people can't see close up. That's why they read newspapers back when there used to be newspapers. Right. So yeah, today's been one of disruption already. Let's see how this stream goes. This is an official modeling thing, official modeling uh, piece of advice and technique, which is that supposed to trim the decal as close as possible to the painted area, so that the clear part of the decal, that the shiny bit around it, okay, doesn't show. It's supposed to not show. So to make it look like it's painted on, it's supposed to trim as close as possible. About 15 years ago, I could trim it. My closest possible was even closer than it is now. You can see I'm leaving a little bit. I'm not cutting right up to the edge, but I'm leaving a little bit of room past the edge because, well, they can't really trust. I can't fully trust my it's the orientation on this one. I hope it doesn't much matter. I think it looks good that way. The yellow's in the lower right. Let's remember that. I'm going to put 4 of them on the paper. It might move along more quickly. It depends on how easily they get into the position they're supposed to be in. Great. You can't see what I'm doing because I'm cutting it closer to me. I'll try to be on camera. So the thing about decals is that, they kind of stick, but then if you get water underneath them, they'll float. And in positioning them, I found that either they're sticking way too hard, and then I put more water on them, and then they float. So many times I have tried to move them a tiny little bit, and they go sliding all the way across. Or I try to move them a lot, and then they won't move at all. Or I get them in the perfect position, but there's a lot of water on them, and I dab at it with a paper towel to get the water off, and it moves it, and then there's no water on it, so they're sticking. Yeah. There's plenty of opportunity for me to be grumpy about it sticking decals on. And I know that that's an important feature. It's an important feature of the stream, is me being grumpy. I've been trying to do is slide them a little bit off of the paper like that, and then grip the paper with some tweezers, and then put it mostly into place, and then slide it off like that. And sometimes that one, relatively speaking, went pretty well compared to how it's gone in the past. Sometimes it doesn't work at all. In this case, there's too much water on there. So these frames, provide quite a good frame of reference. Where the decal should be. But they also, if it's not centered in the frame and if it's tilted at all, it becomes pretty obvious. But then the idea is to have the water off without moving it from its desired location. And then there's always that looks pretty good, let me move it a little bit, and then it gets moved a little bit too much. that. Tiny bits. Tiny little bits of movement. This would go. Actually, this would be better if I couldn't see very well at all. Okay, if I could barely see it, then I wouldn't be compulsive about its location. So moving it around with a toothpick, actually, oh, there's a lot of water under that one. I found that moving it with a toothpick, the downside is, well, I could move it like with a pin, but then there's a really high chance of puncturing it or tearing it. The toothpick usually works pretty well. My fingers can work pretty well if they're larger, but I've had it where it sticks to my finger and pulls it right off. Like that's a good situation. I'll just put it one more time and poof, it's on my finger and not on there, and then it curls on itself. And yeah, it can just go badly. So I've been poking at them with these toothpicks, and for some reason it's just not locating itself perfectly. And that one seems okay now. I wonder if there's. I'm going to try this. I think this might be a mistake. See if there's enough water on it when it comes right off the paper. The last couple of times I put a drop of water, and it's a big drop of water. It caused more harm than good there. Bits of movement, just a little bit, and then it slides. I don't know why, but it's like the nature of the decals. With that, I wanted to move it a little bit, and it moved a lot. If I was slightly more ambidextrous. Yeah, there's right-handed people, left-handed people, ambidextrous people. Truly ambidextrous is pretty rare. But I'm one of those people who is like you'd call us strongly right-handed. I can do some things with my left hand, but apparently not holding tweezers. Holding tweezers is not one of them. Or effectively manipulating tweezers. It seems to be slightly rotated clockwise and off to the left. It's weird on this model. Everything, I think it's because they're at an angle from each other. Everything just looks a little bit askew, just slightly. So slightly crooked. There's that. There's 4 of them now. And now I do these next 4. And then I'll do the control panel. But once I'm done with these decals, notice I say that, once I'm done, as though I know that I will actually finish. I don't really. Okay, well, that's probably not going to hurt anything, but it's not helpful to get the water on this other paper towel. Okay, so the yellows are in the lower right. I'm saying that out loud so that I know what the orientation is supposed to be. These yellow, really, here, these yellow bits are supposed to be on the lower right. If I get them onto the paper towel here in the correct orientation, then they will end up probably much higher likelihood of ending up correctly on the panel itself. So the little buttons are on the right. Yeah, I can't cut out decals and talk at the same time. My ability to multitask keeps being diminished. I don't know. These look actually better horizontal than vertical, but they're supposed to be. It's the way the decals are oriented. So this solo green one is on the right. little blue ones are on the lower right. Yeah, so the secret to getting the decals right is either remembering how they're supposed to be oriented, which people can do when they're younger, or coming up with some sort of adaptive strategy like that. I have to what do you call it, like a mnemonic, mnemonic. The M is silent, I guess. It's kind of weird. Words are weird. I'll just say that. That's on camera or not. I guess it is. The camera's out far enough that it good. There's not enough water there. Not to wrinkle it as I move it. That was happening with some of the larger ones. Is moving the larger ones is a little bit tricky because it's just easier to tear them and to fold them over on themselves even. I think it's being right-handed. That's why they rotate to the right and they move to the left. Really, very much not ambidextrous. Like either goes too far or too little. It's set in the center here. Yeah. So if you ever, you know, get a how-to model book, or watch a how-to model show, not this. This isn't a how-to show. This is a guy doing the best he can, explaining. Well, in some ways, it's a how-to show. I should say that because sometimes I can't do things. I don't have the skill level or the eye-hand coordination or the experience or the practice or something to do things the way, like if you go to a how-to show, stream or a how-to book, they'll say do this, and sometimes you just can't. I mean, like sometimes I just can't do that, and in which case, it's necessary to come up with adaptive strategies. So, to some extent, on this show, on this stream, not a show really, on this stream, you can see reasonable accommodation for limitations that one might have when you get old enough to have those limitations. that curl up on the top. This looks like it. This one is behaving very badly. So sometimes the stream is a how to do something when you can't do it the way you're supposed to. Okay. I mean, I just, it is that. Sometimes it is that. It's how to do something when you can't do it the way you're supposed to do it. It's probably, you're supposed to be able to do this without having to manipulate them quite as much, because you're supposed to be able to just get them right into place, and they'll just happily sit there, look at you and say, I'm in the perfect location. You don't have to do a thing. Just let it be. Or you could be like it is right now, which is, no, not really. It's not quite right. You need to move it over to the right a little bit. But now you've got it. Now you made it crooked. You move it just a little bit further to the right, and it looks like it's too far to the right. I think part of it too is that when I'm talking about writing right and left, I'm talking about it from my perspective of looking at it here. Like a bubble of water up at the corner there. It's just, I don't know why that's. Like a wrinkle in it. Have to come back to that. After I put this one on, I'm going to do something I should be doing all along, which is to clean up the work surface, because it's all full of little bits of paper, which are just off camera. Maybe I'll ask my camera person and director to move the camera so you can see the debris that has built up. Because yes, indeed, a fair amount of debris has built up. And it's actually sticking to my shirt, my sweatshirt a little bit. I don't know that anyone will ever notice that, but there's a wrinkle up here. Consider something. Okay, well, they're on. They end up looking much better after they dry, but there it is. Here, there's the debris pile. Let's get it off the work surface, and move it to another spot, and there's going to be a debris pile on top of the box there that's holding the done pieces. This is soaking up everything. So when I've talked about these control panels, probably the real correct way to do it would be to cut out all of the pieces and apply them separately. I'm not going that far. I'm just cutting them in half. And I found that by cutting them in half, I'm still able to get the location correct, but it reduces the amount of excess film around the edges a little bit. But it also makes them easier to work with. There's more work involved in locating them because I have to locate two of them, but they're smaller, and so they're easier to manipulate. What I've been doing with these is did it on two of them so far, and there was one that was almost identical to this, and there was still some problems. The corner here started folding in on itself. Okay, and this little bit down here liked to wander off, sort of like rotated and didn't stay in its correct location and position. But it turned out okay after chasing these around on the surface. But as I said, if you were really doing like a pro kind of job on this, you would apply each one of these segments separately so that there would be a minimum of the shiny bit, the decal, shiny bit, decal bit. Cutting out a chunk, a major chunk of it here to minimize the amount of it. So this is relaxing, cutting out things with scissors with Dyson Dungeons. The next panel is actually really much more challenging. You'll see it when I get to it, which will be after I'm done with this one. And then I'll show you the decals that go on that one. So, the 8 squares, other than that, they're what is in the squares, the content of the decal being slightly different. It's pretty much the same, though. There's 8 squares that go on 8 panels. But what goes here is really very different. And much is going to be more difficult. I'll have to figure out how to do it. I want this to slide off the paper pretty well because I don't want to lose this little bit here. So I guess this needs to soak a little bit longer than the others. Certainly does. It's bigger. In the meantime, I can find my coffee mug. The official Dice and Dungeons logo mug, which you can't buy, at least not yet. set it over here where it creates the possibility of an accidental spillage. Okay, it's starting to move off now. There. Yeah, you can see that. See the little bit there. A little bit there trying to rotate incorrectly. There. So this is supposed to, this bit here is supposed to be parallel with the center. All milky looking. It's weird. It's discolored. Yeah, to be kind of parallel there, I guess. I guess that's pretty close. Okay, no, that's not close at all. So the important thing here is for them to be symmetric. Okay, so that this is the same distance. This distance is the same. This height is the same. This location is the same on both sides. And the exact location is not as critical as the symmetry of it. The symmetry of it is important. For some reason, this isn't coming down. I should be measuring these. That's what I should be doing, is in relation to the top there, because the seam down the middle, that seam down the middle is not down the middle. Okay, so there, I need, this one's too far to the right, you can see, compared to here and here. Try to move this one a little bit to the left. Let's see if I can get it to go at all. It doesn't really want to move. This one move a little left, right. No, don't. Oh, okay, that was bad. I caught the corner. That's not good. Corner got folded. And you can see it's upside down. Oh, that's not good at all. Able to unfold it. That was scary. That was actually badly done. Okay, so I'm gonna. This one isn't moving. Okay, I'm just not. It is not moving at all. So I'm going to adjust this one, this, and this to be the same. And they're pretty close now. But you almost saw a disaster there, where the decal folded up over on itself. Yeah, the crease. You can see the crease in the plastic here. It goes here, not there, and it kind of throws the perspective off on all of it. So I'm trying to line up the corner to the corner and the corner to the corner. I think that's okay now. Yeah, that was another reason why cutting it in half was a good idea. Can you imagine dealing with this whole gigantic, this whole large piece? Yeah. So it's asymmetric as far as this crease in the plastic goes, which is not even straight, but they are in alignment with the panel above them, the panels above them. So, they're pretty asymmetric otherwise. This could come down just a little bit. It would be good if it did. Like that. Actually, just like that. Okay, I'm going to leave this alone. This one is now declared done. And I'm going to move on to this one before I cause a problem for myself. Okay. So this one is not started yet. There's not only are there the 8 little panel things, right? And the control panel, as I said, this is much more complicated. Okay, and it's even got that little bit off to the end there, which I'm going to have to play with. This side is pretty much like all the rest of them. It's got this little dangly bit, but this is going to be interesting. I probably, I'm going to end up saving that for the end, which is always the bad thing to do. But I'm going to put the display panels up first, these big ones up here. And 17 goes here. These are at least interesting. It's got a big planet on it. And this one's got some sort of like nebulae, different multicolored nebulae. It's kind of cool. This is getting wetter and wetter and wetter. Okay. I don't want this to be wet. Get a cleaner. I'll get one that isn't so wet. It will get wet probably, but at least not start out that way. Yeah. So when I'm eventually done with these, okay, the planet's in the lower left. Let's remember that. When I'm eventually done with these decals, what I will be doing next is working on the Kirk minifigure shoulders. The arms, if you want to look back at the episode, last one and the one before, the arms are attached separately. And then that left a big gap between the arm and the rest of the body. So as I said, it looked like an action figure with movable arms, but it's not supposed to be. He's not supposed to, the Kirk figure is not supposed to have gaps in the tops of his shoulders between his arms and the rest of his body. So I filled that in with a filler, green putty, which works pretty well. It's one of several fillers that I use. And I'm going to be sanding that down so that there are no seams that are showing. That's the intent anyway. That's the thing I'm going to attempt to do today. Depending on how long it takes to get these done. Okay. So these little planets are zipping off to the right. At the rate pace this is going, and with who knows what's going to happen with this control panel here. I mean, that you definitely want to stick around to see how that goes. That could just be oh wow, that went amazing. It looks great. Or it could be, oh no, look, it folded in on itself. That one's just sliding off. I wonder, I lost that little bit altogether. What am I going to do now? It could be one of those oopses, one of those epic oopses that sometimes happens on this stream. But in terms of actually finishing this, it's closer to being done than when I started. I have to say that with some frequency because it's usually true, not always. But it's usually true that after working on something for a while, it's closer to being finished than when I started working on it. There are times when things go very much awry, not like rye bread or rye whiskey or anything. They just go awry. They get messed up. They become disasterated. As it curls up, right? Decals always curl up. If you've ever worked with them at all, there's never been one that hasn't curled up. But as the backing gets wetter, more saturated, it flattens out a little bit until eventually the whole thing decides to slide. Larger ones take a while because the whole thing needs to give up on its background at the same time. Those little squares, those happen pretty quickly. These are not quick, and they kind of, you have to be careful not to get impatient, because then I could tear it. I don't want a torn decal. Arduous process of getting it centered in the frame. Yeah, this one was smaller than the frame, so there's going to be space on the left and the right. I just want those spaces to be symmetric. Be tilted. get it, yeah, even across the top where you can see the black against the white. It's actually pretty decent if I can keep it there. It looks crooked on the bottom, but it's not. Weird. Yeah, I mean, it's okay, even though it doesn't look quite right. This one's pretty interesting. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's got colors and lines and stuff on it. It's decorative. Okay, what I'm going to do after I get this decal located, which hopefully will happen without too much difficulty, is I'm going to clean up the mess pile again. Debris pile. So it looks okay. Okay, so those two are on. Now you might ask, if the control panel is the more difficult one, why don't you do it sooner? And I could, but I'm not going to because could disrupt it as I'm putting these guys on, as I'm working on over it. And my fingers and hands don't always go where I want them to. So if I had a decal down here that wasn't fully set as I was putting these in, I could mess it up. And I don't want to mess it up. So what I do is I put those 8 things in first, and then the bottom, because those are they're really much out of the way of the bottom decal. That's something I've learned, a lesson I've learned and sometimes forget, which is if you're right-handed, to start on the left and go to the right. And just a little thing like that, because otherwise they're doing stuff on top of things that you've already done can lead to a problem. Okay, like you can get your hand. I can. I don't know if you can. You might not, but I get my hand in the work that's already completed. Touch the paint, wet paint, get it on my fingers. Touch my wet painted finger on an already painted surface, and now something that looked okay because it was well painted now has a big wet painted fingerprint on it. And so one of the things I try to do but don't always remember to do is to work in a way that I'm working away from the stuff that's done into the part that's not done. So as not to carry the stuff that's done that's not done into the done part, if you know what I mean. And for me, that's important because it has to do with my right-handedness. It just sometimes can only work in one direction. Somebody who's more ambidextrous or left-handed, of course, would do it quite differently. Okay, this little line thing is at the top. So, yeah. If you've been watching this stream at all, you wouldn't be surprised. If you haven't been, you might be surprised at how often I actually do like get my finger into a wet paint surface area and then touch something that's already been painted, creating a need for all sorts of emergency correction. Sometimes if I catch it quickly enough, because I'm working with acrylics, I can just wipe that paint off if the paint is dry underneath. Sometimes I've been able to do that. Sometimes it's been so bad that I need to start over and like start over with priming and repainting. That doesn't happen that often, but it has happened, and it's not a happy thing. It's definitely not a how-to event. I always get myself into an awkward position, just always. And then my leg falls asleep, or I've had foot cramps. Sometimes I get a hand cramp near the end of the stream, and that's unpleasant when that happens. That's not a how-to thing either. I would recommend not doing that. It makes it a lot harder to get things done if your hand is cramped up. Story du jour, as I expected there to be a lot of construction noise going on in the background, which you wouldn't hear because of the filter on the mic, but I would hear. Once again, our project is delayed again. As the people who were here early, they got here like 45 minutes before their scheduled time, got to work, started moving things along real quickly, and then they got a call of an emergency somewhere else, 50 miles away from here. They needed help there, and they had to abandon us today. And hopefully they'll come back tomorrow and continue the work that they were working on today that was moving along pretty well. On camera. Yeah, it's mostly my camera person and director are not doing too badly today. Thank me for doing this. I've talked about them, but my camera person and director don't exist. Me, I talk about the camera person and director so I could divert blame from myself for things being off camera, or distorted, or just, not being displayed very well. But then it comes down to honesty, which is that, if things are off camera, or the lighting is bad, or my head is in the way or something, it's just me not paying attention to the production quality of this stream, because I'm trying to pay attention to getting the decals oriented correctly, stuff like that, or try to fix a problem. But the other control panel, when the decal folded over on itself, that was bad. Ended up having to just wrap the decal around itself and hope that it would unwrap. Would have been what I could have been. It would have been easier if I used a pin, to get in underneath the decal. But I am really trying to avoid using a sharp object like a pin because it could puncture and tear the decal, and that would make it even harder to fix. So yeah, those of you who are new to modeling, I can't imagine, have never done it before and decide that you're going to try it. Decals are really very fragile. I think I read somewhere that technically they are just paint. That's all they are. It was paint that was either printed on or somehow applied to a paper backing, and they're just really, really thin and delicate. And if you mess one up, like if you tear it, or if it folds on itself and you can't unfold it, there's not much you can do about it. So I'm trying my best to be pretty careful with these. I'm using, something soft like the toothpick here. I'm even using the blunt end of the toothpick, trying to move it. And it's working okay. It seems to this thing without tearing it, at least so far. Okay, those 4 are attached and they look okay. The next 4. There. My debris field is in the way again. After I'm done with these 4, what's going on here? Chat screens are different, I think. Can't read that. This happened once before, and I'm not sure what's going on. But there's a chat screen. I have a large print chat screen in front of me, which I need because because I can't see it otherwise. Okay. I need a large print if it's at any distance. I don't need a large print up close, which is typical, which is usually how it is. I don't need a large print up close, but I need a large print far away because I'm very, very nearsighted. But there's also a chat panel in what is my version of what you're seeing, which is how I can tell if I bother to look whether I'm on camera or not. And the chat there is totally different than the one in front of me. I don't know. I don't know if I'm missing something or if it's not working or if it's something old that's a remnant or something else. I'm really not sure. So if somebody is in chat and I'm not responding, it's a technical problem in that it's not displaying correctly. If you're not in chat, then I'm not sure what it is that I'm seeing there. Well, when I'm done with these 4, I'm going to be taking a quick break, quick little bio break, because I need to do that before I tackle this very complicated control panel thing. You know, all these displays have all these little primary colored bars on them, which, they look nice, but I have no idea what they're supposed to mean. It's as though the language, instead of using words, like the language of the Starship panels is little primary colored light bars. Okay, these little red, blue, and yellow buttons are on the lower right. There's a lot of multicolored little lights and multicolored little switches. Very confusing. It's got to be confusing. Look at this one. Look at these. I mean, how would you like to be in charge of that? I mean, what do you even make of that? And then that up there, that's like a mixing panel, isn't it? That looks like a mixing panel for a soundboard. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe this is the entertainment center for the ship. The DJ sits there and uses the mixer. It's not otherwise identified. That wasn't good. Great. Paper. Can you see what's going on? The decal didn't come completely off the paper. The paper flopped over onto the decal that's already there. The decal I just put on started folding over itself. That was, and then it's really badly oriented. So that just didn't go well. That went really very, very poorly. So if I can get it back to where it should be, kind of. Now there's too much water on there because I was trying to overcorrect, right? Doesn't fit left to right very well. You'd think that they were all identical in terms of size, but they're not. So either the frames into which they're going or the decals themselves are different sizes. Some of them, like this one here, fits the inside of the panel really fully left to right, and this one leaves little lines on either side. See what happens here. Great. Just as I was very carefully getting the debris out of the way, I knocked over a container of all of my sanding paper, which was in a very handy place if I'm using it, and in a very obviously not very good place if one is not using it. It just, my sleeve caught it and knocked it. Fortunately, it was nothing really serious. It's just sandpaper, but now it's scattered all over the floor. I have to go down and crawl around on the floor. Getting down onto the floor at my age is not all that easy. Getting back up from the floor is not all that easy. But I can still do it, which is good, I guess. And in one hand, it's a good thing, because then if I drop something on the floor, I can get down, bend down, not just bend down, but get down on my knees and crawl around on the floor and look for things that fell out under the workbench, and reach under the workbench and retrieve them and that kind of thing. Okay, I mean, that's all good. On the other hand, I can't say, "Oh, I can't do that." Hey, can one of you come and help? In which case, yeah. The ability to do something is the loss of an excuse to not do it. You can keep that in mind. Not if you've got, a real impairment. I'm just talking about me being older. And just so thankful that I can still do a lot of things that other people my age sometimes can't. Like getting down on my knees and searching under the workbench for something that I dropped. So I shouldn't really say there's any downside to that. I was just joking about that. That really was meant to be a humorous thing. I don't ask people to do things for me just because I don't want to. Well, that's not true. Sometimes I really don't want to do them. But I very rarely end up asking people to do things for me if I can still do them, because as long as I can still do them, then I can still do them. And this is my way of babbling about being thankful that I can still do things like paint minis, okay? So that my hand is still steady enough to be able to do that, or to paint these lines around the screens, or deal with this decal that has a wrinkle in it. I don't know just why it was. Why is the second to the last little decal wrinkled? Like there's always something. Oh, good grief. That was one of those things that I talked about before, where I wanted to move it just a tiny little bit and the whole thing just slid, and then this wrinkle is just being so persistent. So there's almost a rule of doing things, okay? And usually this rule applies very frequently. Wow. To removing screws or bolts. Okay. It applies to other things too, like this situation here. So removing screws and bolts, and say you've got 7 of them. I don't know why 7, it's a number just to start with. So you got 7 bolts that you need to remove in order to repair something. let's say that. So the first one just won't come off. It's very, very difficult. So you get the lubricant, like I guess I can say a brand name like WD-40, or there's other kinds of things that you can spray on that will loosen a rusted or tight bolt. And you spray that on, wait a couple of minutes, and then it comes right off, right? And you go, well, okay. And then the next 5, this one's just got a lump in the middle. It's like there's a piece of dirt or something underneath it. What the heck? The next 5 come off right away. It's going, oh, this is great. I can actually finish this sometime in my lifetime. Okay. And then you get to the last one. And the last one is not only stuck, okay? It's not only stuck. You get the WD-40 or your other LPS or whatever you're using as a thing that loosens the bolt. Okay, you get that and you put it on and you go, well, okay, it's like the first one. But then you come back to it and the head of the bolt snaps off. Okay, and you're almost done and you're kind of tired of it and things were going along mostly okay. And then they didn't. Just like here. They're going along mostly okay. And then the decal gets a wrinkle in it. And then the last one doesn't even come close to where it's supposed to be. Sticks to your finger. It did. Instead of using the toothpick like I should have, I tried to slide it off just using my finger. And it stuck to my finger. And it ended up moving halfway across the universe here. And it's kind of like when you're in the middle of it, the more smoothly things are going after you get through the first one, which is always a tough one. The more smoothly it's going, the more the task wants to just taunt you at the end by wrinkling or leaving a bubble or whatever it's doing. I mean, that's going to be invisible later, I know, but still. Or you just lose focus for just a moment and pull the decal off, not with the toothpick, with your finger, and it sticks to your finger, and yeah. So there's, and the other thing too is if you're doing something new, it always starts out slowly because you don't know what you're doing. Like putting together say you've got 4 bookshelves you want to put together. Putting the first one together takes forever because you don't know how you're doing it. And then you say, oh yeah, now I got it. And here's a shortcut I could use. And you try the shortcut and the shortcut actually works, which is cool when that happens. And the second one goes more quickly and the third one goes pretty well. And the fourth one just zips right along. And it's like, but then you're done. That's another rule, is that it takes, that you really don't, you don't catch on to how to do something until you're done. If you're doing something new, I find that to happen way too often. I'm just getting good at this. Oh, now I'm done. I didn't get good at it until I was finished. So that seems to be a rule of doing things. The last one will always be a disaster. If you're doing a sequence of stuff, the last one will always be a disaster. And the magnitude of the disasteration of it is dependent upon how well it was going before it became a disaster. They're proportional. Okay. The better it's going, the bigger the disaster. And the other is you don't really get good at doing something new until you finished it. I don't know why those things are true, but they just are. Just, so there, I've got, I don't know, that this one doesn't fit vertically. Some of them didn't fit horizontally, but this one has a gap at the top and the bottom. Some of them have gaps on the left and the right. So it's like the decals themselves are not square. Right. I'm going to, before I tackle this, okay, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to cut it again and apply this part. And then this part, I guess I'm just going to cut this out. I could cut this off. I could cut that bit off and apply it separately. But look, it's got these little bits, and each one, it would look so much better if I just dealt with each one of those separately. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. I don't think the exact location of them is that critical. But there's this huge area of decal material. Well, I'm going to take a quick bio break and come back and contemplate that to see whether I really want to tackle that and do it the way that would look best as opposed to the way that probably is safest. If I do it in pieces, these together, this, and this, and this, if I do it in little pieces, it would be good practice for the Lola Ford because the sponsorship decals are like that. But I'll be back. I'll just let you keep looking at this, and I'll be back in less than 5 minutes. I'm not going to bother putting the break screen on. You can just watch the decals dry here. Okay, I'm going to start this, and I am going to do it in pieces. Need another toothpick. I did this, if I'm remembering correctly, I did this with the Lola Ford. The Lotus Ford, not Lola. Boy, they would be really upset. They were rivals. Is that I could, with the tiny ones like this, like these little bitty ones, is to use the toothpick like this as kind of a spatula to hold it, and then slide it off using another toothpick. I'm going to try that. So you can see these aren't symmetric. This and this are not the same panel. So unlike this, okay, where the effort was to get them oriented, symmetrically left to right, in this case, it's not that important. I just need to try to remember, what goes where. So this little rectangle, this part here, this is the big part. I think everything's in kind of relationship to that. So what I should do is do that first. This might turn out to be just a really, really stupid thing, but I'm hoping that it looks better by not having massive amounts of decal material. Kind of ruining the appearance. I'm doing what I said I wasn't going to do. Okay, I'm doing this rectangle first because it should be working left to right, but the way this is set up, it goes right to left. This soaking. Cut out this piece, this big piece. I probably should have done this like first thing rather than later in the stream like this. As you know, as time goes on, abilities start to wane. Top like that. So this is going to go kind of like this. It's a big piece. It fills the entire space. And this little bit goes there. Goes up the box top. This one doesn't. So I'm just sort of looking at this picture here. And you can see this is over toward the center, and then this is more over to the left. So if I put this like around here, okay, kind of north toward the middle. Other one, this thing like the others goes here. I mean, it's just like standard like that. These out of the way. I don't want to mess that up. I'm flopping things around. Okay. Whew, slow down. Time to slow down a little bit. I think I need to, I don't want it like horizontal. I need to, because these are at an angle, I think I need to align this with that and not like this. You know what I mean? That the alignment is with these lines. But you can see that. See that looks, if you imagine this surrounded by clear, shiny plastic instead of just being that's a much better look. And then I've got these little bits, but those can go, can kind of go in different places. Ready to come out yet? This is a really big panel. It's going to extend quite a bit over to the left. But then the picture, that's how it looks in the picture too. Okay, in the instructions, that it's way over to the left here, as opposed to that, which is located more like those are. So I'm guessing that'll be okay. It just barely fits. I mean, really, it just barely fits in the space. So get it in. See that? See how it? Yeah, it needs to go all the way up to the top in order to fit in the space at all. Whatever this panel is, it's got a massive thing. Put that all the way up to the top so that the bottom part is more or less similar to the bottom part of the other panels, which doesn't come down quite that far. I think that's okay. It looks like a good relationship between those two spots. I mean, this could come maybe over a little bit more, but I don't know if I want to. I don't know. Do I want to try that? Actually, no, I don't. I don't want to mess with it. Okay, now I've got these little bits here that seem to just be like around. They're just around places. So, oh yeah, and I'm getting close to the point. Yeah, close to the part of the stream where I just need to be really more careful. But this is going to look not no nobody will probably notice this, but this will look so much better rather than having this whole area here be shiny decal material. You have each of these bits on their own. I'm going to do one at a time. I don't want to take a chance of just having them float away on me. Recall this was up here, kind of up there, and then the bar was down here, and then there's a little button there. I'm just going to put them in a way that looks good. Maybe it won't be oriented exactly like it was on the decal itself, because I've kind of lost that. No, this is actually at an angle. At an angle there. Yeah, this probably should be a little more to the right. I don't think I can move that though. In the picture, it's way over to the left. So I guess it's okay. The picture, I mean by the instructions, the instruction picture. I have to kind of decide where to put this. I think it's down a little closer. I don't know what this is supposed to be or do. It's going to be right about there. Yeah, that looks, it just looks a lot better not being attached to all of this other clear plastics, clear decal, not painted area decal. And that little square, that'll be interesting. We'll see if it survives. See if it survives the application process. This one might not be too bad because it's long. If I can slide it lengthwise, it, there's a place to kind of grip it. Need one of these now. Put that in the debris pile. One thing about doing them, you don't know, nobody can look at that and say, oh, you've got these in the wrong places. I suppose you could if you were a real Star Trek person. You might recognize this as being something actually from the set. But, I detached these parts from the main decal, so they might not be located exactly or they were on the decal, but unless you look back, on YouTube at how they were on the decal sheet, as opposed to where they are now, unless you did that, you wouldn't know if I got them wrong or not. Is that kind of an extreme angle? I think it can be closer. Like there. Kind of angle it so it's consistent with that angle. I think that would look better. I think they're kind of like oriented at a 90-degree angle. It's actually not too bad. I'm going to leave it there. Okay. And then there's this little, I don't know why that's there. It looks almost like a mistake, doesn't it? But there's a tiny little rectangular square kind of thing here that was part of the decal. So I'm sure in some episode of the original series, this particular bit, this tiny little button, probably was like critical. It was probably a critical part of some event. This in particular would look a lot better if it doesn't have decal, clear decal stuff all over it. Okay, well that'll be interesting. So there's that. I think that replicated the way it was supposed to look pretty well. They're a little bit further apart maybe than they were on the decal sheet, but they are pretty consistent with the look of this. And then this goes on, and that's pretty much the same as on all of the other ones. Sure, how I'm going to do this. No, that's how I'm going to do it. It just flopped off, just came off. And it's actually fine just where it is. I think on the decal sheet it was way off to the side there, but I like it there. I like it there because that's where it's going to stay. Okay, now cut this out the same way I did before. I usually cut part of that triangle out as much as I can to minimize like the shiny bit that is not the part of the thing. The shiny part that's not part of the thing. Obviously, I am into the last hour of the stream. The last hour of the stream, my incoherence is coming up early. Generally, my incoherence doesn't come up until like the last half hour, but it's starting before the final hour even starts. So you'll just have to deal with it as I babble on, saying words, mostly words. I can't guarantee that everything will be a word. Let's try. See, this is one of those things where I could have separated those two parts from each other. Yeah, but I decided with all of the others not to, because getting the orientation would have been really difficult. don't want to completely separate this little bit from the rest because I don't want to try to get it attached separately. This one's going to have to soak for a while. I tossed this aside a little prematurely. I'm going to put it over the top. It keeps it flat and gives it more water. So here it is. This was copyrighted in 1991. So I imagine the model was built about that time. So that makes the model 34 years old. Holy cow. Older than many of you. After this one goes on, I'm going to pull Kirk's torso out and see what happens, what I can do with the shoulders. This is done. Okay. As done as it's going to be. I'm going to put, I can't put this in the done box. I can't put this in the done box because my debris pile is on top of the done box. And I've got one more piece of debris. I think I'm just going to keep this. I should put this on the back. Maybe I should put this on the back of one of the panels or something. That might be kind of fun to do. Like there. Okay. Once these are assembled, just stick it on the back of one of these. I might do that. Why not? I've got it. Well, down to one. I hope this goes okay. And then after I'm done with this one, I'm going to put some of these things away, just so they're out of the way, and do some filing and sanding. And see if I can get this one without folding it over on itself. What do you think? I'm not even. Whoa, you can tell I need to be stopping. I didn't even take it off the paper towel. Whoa, yeah. It is getting time for me to not be doing anything delicate. Okay, well, this isn't close to where it needs to be, so I hope I can move it somewhat carefully. I'm just trying to make it look similar to the others that had the same sort of panel, which was most of them actually. Temptation here is just to futz with it. That's a technical modeling word, futz. Poke around at it just way too much. And when it's almost just right, to just say, oh no, I need to do this and this and this, and then mess it up. So I'm going to say that actually looks pretty good. This kind of conglomeration of things turned out okay. I'm really glad that I mean, you can imagine what it would look like if all of this area in here was shiny decal material as opposed to the regular control panels. So even though they're a little further apart than they were on the decal sheet, and the orientations might be a little bit different, but the appearance is way better. And that's a how-to thing. I mean, that's a real how-to thing for modeling, because you can see the difference here where there's clear material. There's a difference in glossiness between the decal material and whatever is underneath it. And the more the decal material shows, like, in the gap there, the less realistic it looks. So in some ways, what I should have done is these should have been 3 separate pieces instead of leaving this in. But I made the decision with the other ones to just leave these, pretty much together. But I'm really glad I took those apart, even though it was kind of dealing with tiny little bits of things. Because this in particular would have looked way more like a decal and less like control panel pieces. Okay. What I can do now, though, is I actually can clean up the mess. I'm going to be wandering off camera a little bit while I clean up my debris pile and get the box available to put those in. Done with the scissors. Done with the tweezers. Done with the toothpicks. Just leave those there for the moment. Hopefully it's big enough for them. Is there room for the little one? Yeah, it's kind of sideways, but it'll fit. So these things supposedly, when they start being attached to the circle, are supposed to come together like this. You can see they don't fit real tightly. You can see at the top that this one is less. It's thinner than the one next to it. They rock on each other. They don't line up exactly. I mean, look at that. They don't. They're not the same size. So I'll have to do my best to figure. Once I see which go on Friday. On Friday, I'll be trying to fit these onto the circle, which is over there, which is the base for these. And so all of these panels with the decals, these 5 panels here with the decals, and the elevator and the view screen and the adjacent view screen, all of these are supposed to come together and attach nicely and cleanly to the circular deck and to each other. The odds of that happening are really low. I mean, very, very unlikely that that's going to actually happen. So I'll be making all sorts of compromises, I guess, in terms of fit and finish. I might be surprised. I hope I'm surprised, but it would be a surprise if that all fits together nicely. In the interim, I will set it over here on top of the box of other done panels. That box holds these panels and these, and the chairs. Okay. In this box holds the parts for the railings and the heads. I guess it's time to take the heads off. These are the parts for the railings that go around where the stairs aren't. And these are the bases for 2 of the figures, Sulu and Spock. These are the heads. But I'm not going to do the heads first. I'm going to do the heads later. I'm going to pull Kirk's body out, and you can see where I filled it in around the shoulders. And now I'm going to be filing and sanding that down and trying to make it look human. See how that goes. Oh, well, sanding, right. That reminded me that I knocked. Hi, Angelina. Thanks for joining in on chat. Oh, yeah. Every follow helps. Not only that, but invite all of your friends and relatives and nemesises and everybody else to be a follower as well. I really appreciate it. Not only for this stream, but also for Dice and Dungeons in general and our Dice and Dungeons show. I'm going to disappear for a moment, though, as I go down to the floor and pick up the sandpaper that I knocked down a little while ago, because I need it to fix Kirk's shoulders. I can keep talking while I'm down here, so you know I'm still around. But, yeah, just one more of those things being dropped on the floor. Here we are. So I'm going to be these little bits of sandpaper. I keep wanting to use them until they're just totally unusable. I don't know. It's not like I can't get more sandpaper, but I just have this feeling that if I use it up, it's gone. So the arms went on separately, and there's this big gap between the arm and the torso, which looks, that's not how humans are. You don't have big gaps between your arms and torsos. So I put way too much putty on. Now I need to sand it off until it looks sort of like normal. And I don't know how well this is going to go. I actually won't know how well this goes until I prime it, because frequently things look okay, and when they're painted, gaps and discontinuities show up that aren't visible otherwise. So most of the green is going to come off, almost all of it. And hopefully there'll be a nice smooth connection. If this doesn't work, then I've got a different kind of putty that I can use to try instead. But this is going to take a lot longer to sand off than if I had been much more careful when I applied the putty. So what I'm working on, just, since your first time in chat, is the Star Trek command bridge from the original series. This is a 25th anniversary model, copyrighted in 1991. So that's ancient, and I grew up watching the original series. I was in elementary school when it first came out, and it was not the original series, because it was the only series. It was the series. It was Star Trek. So that dates me even longer, because, this model is the 25th anniversary of something I was watching when I was just becoming a teen. Which explains why when I try to do a nostalgia thing about Star Trek, remembering the episodes as I saw them, I don't remember them very well. There were definite high points, the things that have become kind of classic because they were the high points. They became classics because they were highly memorable, like Trolls. and Harry Mudd. Okay, those were memorable. The engines cannot take it any longer. Doing a time travel, an alternate universe. There's always an alternate universe, and you can tell the bad guys because they've got goatees. Remember that. Of course, first the Tranya, which was, not really a thing at the time, but everybody, even then, after that episode, I just have to say that it wasn't a later thing. It was a thing that actually happened at the time. The episode was all of us 11-year-olds are going around. First the Tranya. Probably it might be one of the, certainly in the top 10 memorable lines of Star Trek. Not just the original series, but Star Trek at all is, but first the Tranya. Everybody wanted Tranya. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know if we were old enough to drink it. We just knew that he relished it. And he hoped that we would relish it as much as he did. Whatever relish meant at the time, we were just, we understood that it meant, oh yeah, I really like this stuff, whatever it is. And the Gorn, just a really memorable episode where, Kirk got to be really brilliant and Shatner really liked, being the star and all that. So everybody else got to sit on the bridge going, oh, come on, Captain, you do this, oh, you can do this. And he does, and that's... It was pretty clear that, the Gorn special effects are not at all like they are in Strange New Worlds, the new series that's come out. Not even close. They were obviously somebody walking around in a lizard head. Okay, there were no special effects, and the costuming was terrible. But the Gorn, it was one of those classic episodes. There were many of those classic episodes where, the crew of the crew of the Enterprise was tested by some other super advanced race, either being tested or played with. They used that trope several times. I remember that. They were testing. I think the Gorn was a test. When the Enterprise got to learn more about the people putting on the tests, and the Gorn were kind of banished because they didn't pass whatever tests they were being given. So that was a memorable episode. Tribbles were a memorable episode. Tranya was a memorable episode. The Kums and the Yangs, that was very memorable. You have to remember that Star Trek came out, it was still very Cold War-y back then. We weren't quite doing duck and cover in the grade school anymore. We kind of moved past that, but we still, our grade school was still a designated fallout shelter at the time. And so the lesson of the Kums and the Yangs and how the war went on forever and ever, and Stars and Stripes come out at the end. It's like, what, really? Now we could be a little more cynical about it. Back then, it was, oh, okay, now I get it. The Yankees and the communists, that's Kums and Yangs. Now we got it. We were slower at getting things then, But Kirk got to be all patriotic. We the The ipeblisna, as you say it, means we, the people. Let me say the words correctly. I don't know if he ended the war or not. I think it ended. It was interesting, actually, thinking about it, that the Kums and the Yangs, that the communists were Oriental. So apparently, even though the real nuclear threat was the Soviet Union, the adversary in the Kums versus Yangs were China. Were China. For some reason, actually, China was considered, kind of stupidly, really, ignorantly. I didn't say ignorantly that China was considered to be a threat, mainly because we didn't want it to be allied with Russia, I think, or the Soviet Union, because as it turns out, they really hadn't developed much of a nuclear force. They were not a nuclear threat, and weren't one up until kind of recently, actually. Way too much of this green stuff on the back of the shoulder here, and I'm not getting it. I'll just keep rubbing at it and see what happens. This particular sandpaper, I really like the grits of this sandpaper, but it clogs up almost immediately and stops being abrasive, like right away. And I don't want to use this coarser grit because this is as coarse as I want to get without leaving scratch marks on everything. Scratch marks on everything. Yeah, so because I can feel it and it feels okay, but I'm not going to know how this is going to look until like I said, until after I prime it, and then I'll find out if there's a big issue there. Yeah, that shoulder has been a problem from the beginning. It was badly molded. There's you can almost see it. There's like a instead of being nice rounded top of the shoulder, there's just kind of a lump there. I need a pointy little bitty pointy file here. Almost use a pin, I think. So I'm going to prime this probably later today, maybe tomorrow. And then Friday, take a look at it and see whether it needs work or not. I'm going to be pleasantly surprised if this looks okay as it is and doesn't need more filler or sanding to look natural. The shoulders just really. This was not well done. This particular part of the model. I'll just say that. this part, the rest of it was actually really bad. You can hardly see it now, but the the seam runs right along here between the two halves of the body, and they were cemented together and required a lot of sanding down to get the seams mostly invisible, I hope. Find out that too after it's primed. But the test fitting was not encouraging. There were big gaps between the two halves of the body, and there's a lot of cement in there that kind of welded the parts together and filled the gap. And I think it came out okay. But again, it's something that won't be known. It won't be known until it's painted, at least primed. I'm going to need more of this. Like I said, you can see it just fills up really fast. So, as far as the model goes, now that I've got the decals on those panels, everything is ready for final assembly. Okay. Other than these minifigs, obviously they're not ready because they're headless and they're not painted. But other than for the minifigs, the rest of the model is ready for final assembly. Everything is painted and decaled. Everything's ready to go. I just need to get all the panels. Need to get all of the panels onto the base. And I am a little concerned that it will be, I don't know, we'll find out. I'm just concerned that it's going to be more difficult than it should be because the parts aren't going to fit very well. So one thing I still have half an hour. So I think, I'll be able to finish sanding this. Within that time frame. And I'm going to, what I'm curious about is just how difficult the heads are going to be. And what I mean by that is, the heads are supposed to fit on the neck, and it's going to leave a gap. They're just not going to be attached really well, and then the gap, sanding down the gap under the head is not going to be fun. But what I'm kind of hoping, and I don't know if this is going to be the case, but what I'm kind of hoping is that this will look like it should be part of the tunic, and that should look like it's the neck, so that this isn't the neck. Okay. I'd like to be able to paint this as the tunic and then attach the heads, maybe already painted. Maybe already painted even. The bottoms of the heads being the skin color and the tops of this being the tunic color, because that would be way, way, way easier for painting and assembly than putting the heads on and then painting the edge around that. So I might test one of these. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll test it on Sulu or Spock. one of the standing up figures. Or maybe I'll just do this one. I don't know. Not getting to it until I'm done with this anyway. This is just, there's way too much here. Way too much. That's getting better. Too much there, too. Sorry, just stopped talking there for a moment. Try to keep the monologue going, but sometimes I can't. And we don't have any music filler because of copyright pirates. They should hijackers, really. Copyright hijackers, play music, and then someone will make a copyright claim against the music, even though they don't have it, and then the software, the streaming software, just has to not let you use the music, or maybe even ban the episode where the music applied until they can finally sort out who actually owns it. It's they'll say, well, we own the copyright, you need to pay us for this. And it's like, no, you don't. We've already paid for it. We have rights to the music. And they go, no, you don't. And then somebody has to resolve the dispute. And it's just it just takes a lot of time, and it's a pain in the butt. That's not good. The gap there isn't closed. To see what, like I said, I'm not going to really know how this looks until I prime it. I can feel it, but I can't really tell how it's going to look. My guess, I'm going to guess that I'm going to have to do more filling and sanding after it's primed. I don't know how much. I'll try to keep it to a minimum, but it just delays things. So this whole Kirk might just be like the last thing done because of his shoulder issues. The fact that they were put on. They're attached separately and they look unnatural. But there, I mean, that's about as good as it's going to get right now. So I'll prime it today or tomorrow, and then we'll see what it looks like. I'm going to pull off Kirk's head. So you can see Sulu looks like Sulu, Spock looks like Spock, Kirk doesn't look like Kirk. I don't understand that. It's an oddity, but there it is. The heads, like everything else, are have mold seams down the sides. Fingers. I like this is a thing I bought. This is one of the expensive tools that you don't have to have, but I'd recommend you do is to get a saw like this. And when you're taking things off the sprue, or in this case, sprue off the thing, cut them off with a saw rather than trying to use an X-Acto knife or a razor blade or just breaking them, because it will give you a lot more control over making sure you don't like break off the sprue into the part, creating a big divot. So what I'm most interested in here, well, the thing that needs to be taken care of is the bit on the top of the head, okay, where the sprue was, which is not a natural part of the hairline. It needs to be sanded off. And then the mold seam runs down the side of the head. Of course it does. Right above the ear. Of course it does. And most people's heads don't have lines running down them like that. Especially when you've got texture like the hair texture. Just, wow. Yeah, it's pretty prominent. That's going to take some work. But first, not to charm you, but first, I want to see how the head fits on the body. Oh, okay. Yeah, here's the deal. They've got this black collar. I forgot it. I didn't notice that. Which is conveniently not, well, I guess it is. So what I can do, this might actually be okay, is that this bit here, okay, right here, the top of this, including that little divot down here where the line is not very clearly delineated, that is going to be the black collar. Yeah, that's good. And then this will be the neck entering the collar. So the question is, how can this be attached in a way so that there's not an unnatural gap, so that the gap makes it look like the collar is kind of up around the neck. Or is there just going to be this unnatural gap? And there's an unnatural gap there. Yeah, this is rounded on the top. This is sort of flat. I'm wondering if it's possible. I have to paint them after it's assembled. I was hoping to be able to paint them separately, and maybe I will kind of. But what I'm wondering is whether it's possible to get the connection tight enough but there's not an unnatural gap between the head and the body. Right now, there's a very bad, unnatural. Not only that, but the neck is too tall. So that's the kind of thing, if I use the model cement, okay, if I use the model cement, it will fill the gap. but then it'll need to be sanded, and then I'll need to. What I was hoping is to be able to paint the collar, but I can't. I'm going to have to attach the head first so that I can close the gap, and I really will need to close the gap. His head is quite tilted. Yeah, I'm going to have to cement it on so that the cement fills the gap, and then I'm going to have to sand it down, and then paint the collar and the flesh separately after it's put together. It's just too bad. It would be so much easier to be able to paint this, and go, there you are together. But look, I mean, yeah, it doesn't look like his collar is up around his neck. It just looks like his head is detached. So it's not going to work out the way I was hoping it would work out. It's just going to be painting a minifig. So those kinds of boundaries between two colors are always an issue. But I'll play with that. Deal with the heads after I get the shoulders right. Okay, when the rest of this is okay. The other two are okay. They're ready to go. But Kirk isn't. And then there's the seam, the mold seam that it's hard to see, but it's there. That goes right down the side of their heads. And across the top of their head. And I can't be there. The way this will work is I'm going to prime the body primarily to see whether I need additional work on, whether I need to do more filling and sanding on the body. And then I'm going to attach the head and prime it again. And it isn't going to hurt to do that, because if the head is on, I can't work on the shoulders and the rest of the body very easily. And once the head is on, hopefully the only thing I'll need to worry about is taking care of the neck seam. Looks like there's some time in. Maybe I'll work on the other heads. I'm kind of feeling like I just want to knock off a little early, though. This is these mold seams on the head are they're really bad. I mean, they're prominent. Violate my own rules. I think I'm going to use the file on this so that I can kind of follow the hair. If I'm sanding it, the hair will kind of get flattened out. This way I can kind of, I don't know. I'm actually going to, when I do this with the heads, I'm going to have to use the head magnifier. That's kind of funny. The goggles, the magnifying goggles I've got. Not really goggles, the magnifying glasses that go in front of my eyes, because it's really hard to see where the extra seam plastic is. It's maybe easier if it were dark. Yeah, a little bit. I want to get the seams on the head gone before I attach the head, because you can see, if this were attached to the body, it would be hard to hold. Yeah, so this is going to have to be done under magnification. It just is going to have to be. Put the heads. I'm going to stop working on this right now. I can't see it well enough without magnification. I don't have that handy. Put the heads in here so I don't lose them. Now, this is the other thing I want to do. Those need to be painted the brown color of the base, because these are the bases for the Sulu and Spock figures, and they're standing on brown. Like that. And so the base should be the same color. I mean, it'll still look like there's a plastic base there, but that. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm getting an attachment point, something to attach those to for the painting. Be right back. This is a little piece of cardboard. And since I'm going to be spraying paint onto these, what happens is they're very light, and I spray the paint and they get knocked around. So what I do is take a little piece of tape, hold it over itself, stick it on. And I'm going to need 2 of these, I just realized. I am painting these a very different color than that. And if I put them on together, then they will overspray each other, and that will be wrong. So I can tell it's very close to the end of the stream, and I just barely remembered. Is barely remembered in time that these can't be put on the same piece of cardboard together because they're being painted different colors. Okay, this piece of paint, this is dead. This is half dead. These files will be used on Friday. It's away. One of my New Year's resolutions to keep a clean work surface, and then I need to get another little piece of cardboard, and this is going to be painted back on the back and then flipped over and painted on the other with white primer. But I only brought one piece of, well, here. It doesn't have to be very big. Let me do this. Okay, it doesn't have to cover everything. It just needs to be there to hold them from flying around. I can just cut this into 2 pieces. Then I don't have to get up at all, and you can watch me cut cardboard with scissors on screen. That was pretty cool. I'm going to paint the back first and then flip it over. I do that I just sort of started doing that because sometimes, when you put something on tape, sometimes the tape will affect the paint. And if the paint is going to be flawed in any way, I want it to be like there where it isn't going to show as opposed to the front. On Friday, we'll find out how much more work needs to be done on the body side seams and the shoulders. And then I will be working on assembling all of these parts, all these panels, which are now completed, onto the base. That will take most of the stream. If I can get those on, I'll be attaching the railings. And once the railings are attached, if I can get these attached and the railings attached, it'll actually be completed because the chairs are finished. It'll be completed except for the minifigs, and the minifigs need heads. So it'll be a while. I'll be working on the minifigs off and on. On Friday, I'm not going to predict that I'm going to finish this, but on Friday, I'm going to predict that I'm going to attempt to finish this by getting all of these panels attached. I'm going to use contact cement. I've decided to do that because that gives me the best chance of putting something in place and having it hold there and not fall over while I'm attaching another piece until I go all the way around. The contact cement is nice. I can attach it to all of the surfaces. Okay. I can apply it to all of the surfaces, and I've got like 2 hours before it's no longer adhering to itself. So I've got a lot of time to get them all adhesive applied to all of them, okay, and then attach them, have them kind of hold in place and still be adjustable. So that's a nice thing about that. And then if that works okay, then I'll put these railings on, and then it'll be done, except for the minifigs. And the minifigs will be close to being done, but will actually take quite a while because of the many steps. Getting the heads to fit, attaching the heads, filling in the gap between the head and the body, sanding that down. It's like each step isn't going to take a long time, but time has to elapse between steps. So while I'm waiting for those steps to be completed, I'm going to go back to the Lotus Ford car, which is the little decals that I put on one of those control panels, where I cut them up into tiny pieces. The whole thing is going to be like that, because the sponsorship decals are all individual little decals that go along the side of the car. Dyson Dungeons is about our Dungeons and Dragons show. Be sure to catch that on, if you can't catch with live chat on Twitch, when it streams on Sundays, catch it on YouTube or as a podcast. Okay, do that. Support us. Support Dyson Dungeons. Become a follower here on Twitch. Become a subscriber on YouTube. I think that's what it's called. You can go to patreon.com/Dyson Dungeons and become a patron and get access to our DM notes for the sessions, and also to our improv warm-ups, which we do before each time we record the show. And those tend to be pretty funny. And also hot takes from Cold Reads, where we ask artificial intelligence to tell us something about Dyson Dungeons or its characters. And it usually just makes up all sorts of things that are lies. It's been kind of fun and scary when AI says that, for example, I ran an Ask Me Anything session on, Facebook or something, which I never did. So it's made up lies about us, not as characters even, but as real people. So that's been kind of interesting. So thanks for the follows so far. Anybody else want to be a follower, you're very, very welcome. We'd appreciate that. But even better, catch our show and enjoy it. I'll be back on Friday at more or less 10, at which time I will be attempting to assemble the control panels to the base of the command bridge. That'll be interesting. See you then. Thanks.